Another example, I only have a couple more, and then that's it. But these are organisms that maybe you've heard of, or if not, you can definitely tell people about them. Kudzu. We have kudzu here in Maryland. It's a pretty big issue the more south you get. It's actually called the vine that ate the South, because that's how like intense it is. But we do have it up here, especially when you're driving on 95 between DC and Baltimore. The interstates are lined with kudzu. So kudzu was originally brought over in the 1800s as an ornamental plant. So, oh, it's a beautiful vine. Let's grow it and place it on our house. Cool. A lot of invasive plants, start that way. It looks pretty, and then it destroys everything. We actually started using it for an economical use. During the Dust Bowl, we had tons of dust everywhere. It was because of our agriculture practices and because of drought that soil was not staying in place. And so during the Dust Bowl, farmers were planting it everywhere. The government was planting it everywhere. As an ecosystem service, they wanted to plant it in order to hold that soil down. If you get rid of the soil, you're getting rid of nutrients. You're getting rid of nutrients, you can't plant anything. So it was incredibly important to lock that soil down. And it wasn't just the farmers. Railroad companies were growing it along along railroads where it was plain dirt to hold that soil in place. Awesome idea. And it worked amazing. I will give them the credit. It worked so amazing. However, it is now taken over anywhere the environment is great, like the South. Really hot and especially humid. So kudzu in this map is found everywhere in green, but it is the worst in this region. And it takes over everything. If you see anything abandoned, it doesn't even have to be abandoned. It'll take over a forest. A healthy forest can get literally covered in kudzu. So if you guys are out driving, keep your eyes out for this. If you see a vine that is covering everything, guarantee you it's kudzu, especially along interstates. All right. The last one I want to tell you about is just a really crazy story. I don't expect you to remember all the specifics of this story, but it kind of highlights the problem with invasive species. Why they're a problem in the first place, but also how humans kind of exasperate that problem. So we're going to Macquarie Island. Macquarie Island, small little island off the coast of Australia. And when explorers first found this island, they accidentally introduced rats. Rats were in their ships. Once they land on board, it's in the food, it's in like their stuff, accidentally released. Not that many rats, because it's not like they're bringing over thousands of them, but enough where they could reproduce. And they're reproducing a lot because they're now on this brand new island. This island actually had no mammals on it. Tons of birds, tons of reptiles, tons of everything else, but not mammals. So these rats are the first mammals, and they've got pickings of everything. Eat anything that they want to. So this was about 1810 when this island was discovered and these rats were introduced. The rat population exploded. Now, yes, they have a whole big island, but these rats are staying in close vicinity to these human populations, and they're getting into the food stocks. They're getting into clothing and cellars and everything. And the people settled on this island didn't like that, so they brought over cats because cats will eat the rats, and they did. So that's cool. They took care of the rat problem. Yeah, we're going to come back to those cats in a little bit. These explorers, so this one, I'm going to put an A next to this. These rats were accidental. The cats were on purpose. About 60 years later, after this island was first inhabited, they also brought over rabbits, so this was on purpose. The reason they brought over these rabbits was because they wanted a food source. As I mentioned before, there were no other mammals on this island. Yes, they could grow crops, and they were, but they wanted a meat source. Well, you could eat rats, and they probably did, but they don't taste great, and there's not a lot of meat on them. Can't eat the cats, because cats are holy. So they brought over rabbits, and the idea with rabbits is they could do trapping to use it for the fur and to use it as a meat source. Cats really like the rabbits too, so the cats would eat the rabbits, but rabbits reproduce really quickly, so that wasn't too big of an issue. But it was another food source for these cats. So these cats have rats to eat on, they have rabbits to eat on. The cat population exploded. They had all this food. So you're having tons and tons of cats around. If any of you have owned a cat or know things about cats, they also love birds. Really, cats love everything that they could catch and kill. And they were also preying upon the birds of the island. Now, islands have some of the rarest species in the world, because usually you can find that species only there and nowhere else. Macquarie Island is no exception. This Macquarie parakeet actually went extinct because of cats. The cats actually hunted them to extinction. So it's a species we no longer have on Earth because we as humans brought over cats. The cats ate the rats, cats ate the rabbits, cats exploded, we ate the birds. Birds went extinct. This story's not over. It keeps getting better. So it's about 1891, nearly 100 years after humans first landed and introduced rats. Now this rabbit population is getting out of control. Yes, there are cats eating them, but cats are eating a lot of things. Rabbits, the only predator they have are these cats. These rabbits are exploding in population. About 100 years after these rabbits were originally introduced, we, as humans, introduced a flea. Because nothing can go wrong. We introduced a flea that also had, I'm going to put P for purpose, also had a poison inserted into the flea. So the flea was not really affected by the poison, but it was carrying this poison, or it was really a disease it was carrying. And it went and infected all these rabbits. This flea is very specific to rabbits, so it only targeted the rabbits, which was good. You didn't have this crazy, epidemic of cats dying everywhere and rats dying everywhere. It actually killed a good proportion of the rabbits. It killed about 90% of them. About 10% of them had a natural immunity to it. So they might have been bit by those fleas. They might have had resistance to that disease that was being carried, and they survived. Cool. So we killed 90% of them, but we now have 10% that are immune to this. So we have all these immune rabbits now, and now they're breeding, and so the population it goes down for a little bit, but it just goes right back up. But now we have super bunnies that can withstand this disease. Right, so this is not looking good. All right. Recently, so in the past 2 decades, we, as humans, because we do everything, we actually did a huge trapathon of cats. In the year 2000, we caught the very last cat on this island. There were no more cats on the island. It was good and bad. It was good because it got rid of one problem. The bird populations actually bounced back really quickly. I mean, this guy's still extinct. Sorry. But there's a lot of other birds on the island that started returning to breed on the island, and their numbers were bouncing back very quickly. So that solved one issue. We now no longer have predators of these rabbits. So these rabbits are getting even more out of control. And it's not so much oh, I'm being bothered by the rabbit. The rabbits are eating lots of vegetation. That vegetation is leaving the soil bare. And so they were having tons of landslides on Macquarie Island. Their crops were getting ruined all the time. So it was negatively impacting humans. Now, extensive trapping has been going on to catch the rabbits. They did successfully eradicate all of the rabbits in 2012, which is insane. So they have caught all the rabbits. In 2012, they found the last female bunny. She was pregnant, but they've been doing surveys since 2012 and they haven't found any rabbits. So they have gotten rid of the cats. They have gotten rid of the rabbits. Rats are still a problem, I believe, but not nearly as much of a problem as they used to be, because since then we have rat poison and things like that. So as you can see, it started with an accidental release of something. And that cascaded to this whole problem. So again, I'm not going to ask you on the test, like, tell me everything that happened on Macquarie Island. But you should have, if I give you a scenario where I'm like, oh, should we introduce cats? You could be like, well, we could, but this could happen, or this could happen. Or if I'm like, I need a meat source, what should I do? Should I get rabbits? You should be like, well, you could, but you have to think about this could happen, or this could happen. So I want you guys to learn from our mistakes. Like this, fortunately, kind of had a good story. We have an extinct bird, but we did fix our problem. It took about 200 years and millions of dollars, but hey, we fixed it eventually. So invasive species, again, they're non-native, so they were taken from their original habitat and placed in a new habitat, sometimes on purpose, sometimes on accident. They don't become invasive, though, until they start negatively impacting other species, the ecosystem, human infrastructure, and that's when we really care. That's when it becomes more important of how do we manage this species. We have tons of examples of invasive species that maybe either directly affect you and me, or at least directly affect someone around the world. So it's incredibly important to do your best to not exacerbate the problem and bringing species back and forth. That's why immigration control, if you've been to other countries, always asks about food and plants because they're trying to control the movement of these species.